Hi everyone, and welcome to the Knit California channel. This video is a tutorial for how to make the Knit e-reader cozy. This video has chapters down below if you'd like to skip directly to the tutorial or any other section, but first we're going to get into a little bit of an introduction. Hi everyone, my name is Leslie. I'm Knit California here on YouTube and also over on Instagram and TikTok, and I am so excited to bring this tutorial to you today for knitting up a Knit e-reader cozy. This is my very first pattern that I have ever designed, and let me tell you a little bit about why I designed this pattern. Basically, I have a Kindle and I have never had a case on it. It does have a little pop socket, but I have been traveling a lot more recently and throwing this into my backpack and purses and other carrying devices, and I'm kind of worried about it getting scratched. And so I decided, well, why don't I just knit up a little cover for this, a little cozy for this, and it'll be a really fun project. It'll keep my device safe and secure, and it'll be really fun. So that's what I did. This pattern is available for purchase on Ravelry, though today's video tutorial is free here on YouTube. The pattern that's available on Ravelry does have a few more options than what we are going to be talking about today, so let me talk to you a little bit about what those entail. First, the pattern that's available for purchase has 3 closure methods. The first is this band with snaps, and we are not going to be knitting this one today, so this is only available through the purchase pattern. But basically, I really wanted, this was my first idea for how to close the e-reader cozy and make sure it was safe and secure, and there are 2 snaps attached to a folded over band. Snap them, and your device is fully secure inside of this. The second closure option that is available only in the pattern on Ravelry is a zipper closure method. The third option, which is what we are going to be knitting up today, is an I-cord closure. Very similar to this. Let me show you how this works. It's stretchy enough that your device will fit right in. It is a little snug, which is what we want, because as soon as the I-cord comes above the edge of your device, again, it's snug in there. It is not falling out. Again, which is what we want. We want your device to be safe inside of its cozy. The other thing that is included in the written pattern that's available for purchase on Ravelry is my gauge calculator. So I know that there are all different types of devices. I specifically have a Kindle 10th edition. There are many different types of Kindles. I know that people have Kobos. I know that people read on their iPads, their iPad minis. All of these different devices have different sizes, different widths, different lengths, different dimensions. Additionally, everybody has a different gauge. My gauge for this device on 3.5 millimeter needles is 26 stitches by 39 rows. This pattern was tested by 20 incredible knitters, some of which my friends and family, some of which found this on Instagram and decided to apply to test knit, but we all had different gauges. And so with different size devices and different gauges, you're going to need different cast-on stitch counts and a different number of rows that you're going to want or need to knit in order to cover your full device. So there is a gauge calculator that is included in this pattern that is very easy to use. You click on the link from the pattern, you make a copy of the Google Sheet that pops up, and then you'll be able to input the dimensions of your device, your stitch gauge, and your row gauge, and it will calculate and tell you how many stitches you need to cast on and how many rows you need to knit in order to make your perfect cozy. It also includes some information on if you would like to knit the sports stripes version, which are these 3 stripes here. It tells you, knit to this number of rows, then start your stripes, then knit the final number of rows to reach the end. There's also information on knitting even stripes or color blocking your cozy. Lots of different options for whatever you're interested in. Going back to what we are going to be covering today, we are going to be knitting up a cozy for the Kindle 10th edition. My Kindle that I have here is 4.3 inches in width. Oh, there goes my pattern. 4.3 inches in width and 6.2 inches in length. So these are the dimensions that I'm going to be knitting up. Just a note on if you would like to follow this YouTube tutorial but you have a different size device. Here are a couple things that you can do so that you can still follow this tutorial but get a cozy that fits your device. The first thing really is to see, okay, is your device bigger in width than mine is? The answer is likely going to be yes. I have found that this Kindle is one of the smaller devices that is out there. So you can start by just casting on a few additional stitches depending on the width of your device. And then as you're knitting, keep as you're knitting the length, just keep trying it on your device, and eventually you'll get to the point where you're gonna see, okay, I'm right here at the top. It's time to switch to the closure method. You may need to start over once or twice just to make sure you've got the correct number of stitches cast on that works for the width of your device. But just know if you're using a superwash merino wool, your fabric is likely going to stretch. So we want this to be snug, tight, and secure so that your e-reader doesn't get damaged, but at the same time, know that it's going to be stretchy, okay? You don't need it to be too wide. You don't really want it to be flopping around. You kind of want to think of it as like a sock for your device. All right, let's talk through the materials that we are going to be using today. Let's start with the yarn. I am going to be using this lovely, gorgeous turquoise yarn, and this pattern is knit at a DK weight gauge. So you can use 1 strand of DK weight yarn, or what I'm going to be using is 2 strands of a fingering weight yarn held together. My yarn specifically, I will show you, is Explorer Knits and Fibers, her 80-20 sock base. So it's 80% superwash merino wool, 20% nylon. It's 400 yards per 100 grams. And if you're interested in the colorway, this is the color to the Stars Who Listen, which is a reference to the A Court of Thorns and Roses book series. So a very popular book series. This goes perfectly. I feel like we're making a Kindle cozy, a knit e-reader cozy, related to books. I love this book. This yarn is related to the book. Okay, you get it. You get it. Okay. The other thing you are going to need is your needles. So I'm going to be knitting this on 3.5 millimeter needles. This is a US size 4. I have the ChiaoGoo interchangeable needle set. I'm going to be using a 32-inch cable and knitting this on magic loop. I do think this is the easiest method to knit this on, but use what makes sense to you. I am also going to need a 3.25 millimeter needle set for the last couple rows and the I-cord closure. We want this to be on a slightly smaller needle size so that it really cinches in the top here. You can see how the top is cinched in, and that really helps keep your device secure. A couple other general notions that you're going to need are some scissors, a tapestry needle to weave in those ends, a tape measure, to make sure you've got the right length that you're knitting to. And I am also going to be using a row counter from Twice Sheared Sheep. I am an affiliate with Twice Sheared Sheep, so if you're interested in checking these out and purchasing one for yourself, the link will be in the description box down below. But I'm going to be using this so that I know how many rows I need to knit to, and so I don't have to count every single row as I knit it. Okay. I think that is everything. I'm excited about this, so let's get into the knitting. Okay, so as I mentioned before, I am going to be knitting mine up with 2 strands of fingering weight yarn held together. I've got them here nicely. I'm gonna pull some yarn out of my cake just so that it is ready to go. And I have my US 4 3.5 millimeter needles here also ready to go on a 32-inch cord. Ready to go, like I said, for magic loop. Okay, are you ready to go? Because I'm ready to go. We are going to start by casting on 28 stitches onto each needle using Judy's Magic Cast On. So I will have 56 stitches total cast on to both of my needles. If you have never done Judy's Magic Cast On before, there will be a link to a fabulous tutorial in the description box down below, walking you through step by step, showing you in a little bit of a slower motion how to do this. I'm going to do my best today to walk you through it, but sometimes people need to see a couple different videos to make sure they're doing the correct thing. So we're going to start. I have portioned out a decent amount of yarn here, you can see, for my tail. And then I'm going to make a slip knot, and I'm going to slide this onto one of my needles. Now this is a very different cast on than a normal long tail cast on, so just make sure you're watching what's happening here. This cast on is going to be on the back needle, so I am over here. This back needle is away from me, this front needle is closer to me. So the slip knot is going to be on the back needle, and my tail is going to be in the back. My working yarn coming from the skein is actually going to be in the front. This is opposite from how you would do a long tail cast on. Now we're going to hold our yarn similar to the slingshot method here, and as we're doing Judy's Magic Cast On, we are going to be adding stitches to both needles at the same time. Kind of in an over-under method is how I like to think about it. So we already have 1 stitch on our back needle. We are now going to put a stitch onto our front needle, moving our needles in this backwards direction. We are going to pick up this back piece of yarn, and it is now situated on our front needle. Since we just put a stitch on our front needle, we are now going to put a stitch on our back needle by moving it towards this front and wrapping it around just our front needle. So you can see now I have 2 stitches on the back and 1 on the front. We are going to continue this over-under movement. Whoops. Like I said, I'm sorry if you can hear my dog growling at me. He wants to be part of the video. Until we have 28 stitches on each of our needles. So now I have 3 on each. Sometimes it helps if the needle tips are a little bit closer together. Okay, and we're gonna keep going. Which one do I need to do now? Here we go. Okay, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7. You can move them a little bit with your thumb. Okay, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, 10. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Okay, so we've got all of our stitches cast on. You're gonna wanna make sure this last stitch is on here kind of precariously. So you kind of are going to want to twist your tail around your working yarn just to give it slightly more security here. This is the outside of our work. If we flip this over just so you can see, there is a round of like pearl bumps here. It almost looks like a spine. This is going to be on the inside of our cozy. Okay, so I'm going to turn this around. We want our needles pointing to the right side just to be in the correct orientation for starting to knit. Again, I'm going to, this is the tail of my yarn. I'm going to put it over here. I'm going to bring my working yarn around to the front to secure it a little bit. I'm going to pull out now my front needle to start knitting in the magic loop style. And we are going to knit this first row, just normal knits. When we get to the second side here, the side that is currently on this cable, we are going to knit this through the back loop because it is currently twisted. All right, so we are just going to knit this entirely. You can see this is probably, this cast on and knitting these first couple rounds are probably the most difficult part of this pattern, just because it is such a different cast on that not a lot of people have experience with. And you can see that it's also important to have a long cable to knit this in the magic loop style. We can't really do Judy's magic cast on not using the magic loop style, but if you're watching this tutorial, you don't have a long cable, you would like to cast this on, you've got straight needles or double pointed needles, you can still knit this. What I would recommend is just casting on 28 stitches onto each double pointed needle, or 28 stitches onto one long straight needle, and knitting the whole cozy, and then at the end you can sew up the bottom so that it's got a nice bottom closure and your device will be secure. Okay, we're coming up here to the end of this first half of the round. Okay, there we go. We are going to turn our work and situate our needles so that we can start knitting the other side of this first round. And like I mentioned, these stitches on this side are twisted. So we are going to want to knit all of these stitches through the back loop. This first stitch here is your slip knot, so if you did a really tight slip knot like I did, just be careful with it. Something to watch out for. There we go. Okay, and now we can see how this stitch is twisted. This is like the front leg, and it is coming around to the back. So I'm going to knit all of these stitches through the back loop. I'll tell you a fun, cute, heartwarming little story here. So I taught my mom how to knit a couple months ago, and since then she has only been knitting golf club covers for herself and some friends that she golfs with. And when I put out the tester call for the Knit e-reader cozy, she applied. And she was like, I was really excited. I was like, "You're gonna knit my pattern?" And she was like, "Yeah, why not? I think I can do it." And so it had some new techniques that she had not learned before, such as this cast on and the I-cord closure at the top. And I sent her all the video links, walked her through it when she needed some help, and she did it. It looks amazing. So this pattern is beginner knitter tested and beginner knitter approved. And I love it. Okay, we've got a few more stitches here at the end of our cozy. Oops. If you're knitting with 2 strands of finger and weight, make sure you catch both strands on every stitch. Here we go, last stitch. Okay, so that was the first round complete. For the Kindle original version, 10th edition, the one that I have, that is, what did I say, 6.2 inches in height. 6.2 inches. We are going to knit 60 rows, and I have already knitted 1 row, so that is 59 rows for me to knit. I am going to show you how I set up my row counter in case you are interested in also using one to count the number of rows. It has this removable marker that I'm going to put on the 6th bead, because in total I have 60 rows that I need to knit. I have already knit 1 row, and because I'm knitting this magic loop, I like to place my row counter a couple stitches in from the edge so that it doesn't fall off and flop around when I'm moving my needle around. So I usually do 2 or 3 stitches. And I'm going to place my row counter here on the 2. Like I said, I already knit 1 round, so this is the 2nd round. And I'm going to knit until I get to the 0. That's 10 rounds. Once I get to 10 and I move it back to 1, I'm going to move this removable marker down to the 5. And I'm going to count down until I have done all 60 rounds. I do have a whole video on how to use one of these row counters that goes a little bit more in depth if you're interested in checking that out. But that is basically the whole setup for knitting this cozy. So we are just going to keep knitting magic loop style until we knit 60 rows. Again, if you have a longer device, you will likely need a few more rows added on. But you're gonna get to the point where you can try on the cozy onto your device. And so you'll very easily be able to tell when you get to a point where you think, okay, I'm done, it is fully covered, I am ready to do the I-cord closure. I'm going to start knitting a few rounds and then I will come back. I'm going to show you what it looks like at that point. I'm going to show you how I do a little try on, and then we will go from there. I have finished 10 rounds on this. You can see my row counter here is on the 0, that means 10. And here is the progress that we have so far. I wanted to try it on here. You can see here, this is the cast on edge, and as we're knitting in magic loop, we are knitting a closed tube here basically. So both sides here are closed, and we're about 1/6 of the way through with knitting this. So at this point, if you're like me, the tail is starting to get really annoying. So I'm actually going to take this opportunity using our tapestry needle to weave this in, because I just like, I have to move it like every row that I knit. It's in my way. So we're just going to take this time to get it out of the way. And so I'm just going to thread this onto my tapestry needle, turn it inside out, give it a little bit of a tug to like snug up that slip knot end, and we're just going to weave this in on the back side the best that we can. I'm going to try and find a row here following my purl stitches, basically my reverse stockinette. And weave this in. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna use my scissors and give this a trim. And look, if you're the opposite of me, you don't mind this end hanging out and you don't like weaving in ends, like that's fine. Just when you're done with this, tuck it in. It'll be on the inside of your cozy and you'll never see it. Let's see. Here's where I wove in my end. I can feel it. It's a little bit thicker right there, but you can't even see it. So that's why I like weaving in my ends, just to get it out of the way. But again, you don't even need to if you don't want to. At least for this one, it'll be on the inside of your cozy and you'll never see it. Okay, we are going to get rid of that and I'm going to continue knitting this. Let me show you just really quickly how I move my row counter in case you're interested in seeing this. Okay, I'm gonna move it back from the 0 to the 1, but before I do, I need to move my marker down. It is right now on the 6 bead. I'm gonna move it to the 5 bead because I've done 10 rows, so now I've got 50 left to do. And slide it back onto my needle. And I'm going to keep knitting. So, catch me back here in about 20 more rows. I'll show you what this looks like when it's about halfway done. We'll do another try on my Kindle, and we'll go from there. Okay, I am back. I have completed 30 rows out of the 60, so we are about halfway, and I wanted to show you how this looks like fitting on my Kindle. There it is. It's looking so good. I've mentioned before, this will stretch a bit, and when we get the I-cord up here on the top, that will help to stretch it lengthwise, but it's looking so good. So at this point, we are just going to continue knitting in magic loop for 30 more rows, 10, 20, 30, and then I will come back to you and show you how we're going to finish this off. Okay, so we have made it. We have completed the full 60 rows here on the body of our cozy. Let me just show you. Let's slide in my Kindle and look at that. It should be right at the top. We're gonna do, basically what comes next is we are going to switch needle sizes to a smaller needle size. We'll do one row of plain stockinette and then we will do the I-cord bind off. So where this is sitting right now, it is right at the top of my Kindle, my e-reader, so this is perfect. Plus the yarn stretches a lot, so like I can stretch this to like even close it now. So where it's at is perfect. So let's take this out, and I've got my 3.25 millimeter needles here. We are going to, like I said, switch from our, what was this? From our 3.5 millimeter to our 3.25. So let's go ahead and do that. If you're not using interchangeable needles, if you just have fixed needles, what you're going to do is you're just going to start knitting with the new needle. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so if you just have fixed circular, you're just going to start, you know, if this was your larger needle, you would just take your smaller needle and just start knitting with your smaller needle. Since I have interchangeables, I changed both the left and the right needle. And now what we're going to do is we're going to knit one round with this smaller needle size. This is just going to help cinch in the top of the cozy a little bit more and just be a nice transition from our larger needle size to our smaller needle size. I do not need my row counter anymore, so I'm going to take that off. And I'm going to meet you back here when I have finished knitting one full round, so both sides of my cozy with this smaller needle. Okay, so we have finished that one round with our smaller needle size, and we're ready to do the I-cord bind off. This is going to be a 3-stitch I-cord bind off, and so how we're going to start this, I have linked in the description box down below a tutorial from Very Pink Knits on how to do this I-cord bind off if you would like to watch that. I love her tutorials, and so sometimes I need someone else to explain things to me. But this is how we're going to do the I-cord bind off. We are going to start by actually casting on 3 stitches onto our needles using the backwards loop cast on. So here's 1, 2, and whoops, 3. There we go. And now we are going to start with our pattern for the I-cord. The pattern that we're going to be following is knit 2 stitches, slip 1 stitch knitwise, knit 1 stitch, pass the slip stitch over as if to like bind it off, and then slide all those stitches back over to the left hand needle. So I know it's kind of a lot, but let's just get into it. So we're going to knit the first 2 stitches. Whoops, just knocked my ball of yarn all the way over there. Okay, we're going to knit the first 2 stitches. So knit 1, knit 2. We're going to slip this next stitch as if to knit, so just slide your needle in as if you're going to knit it, and then knit 1 stitch, and then I feel like I did this wrong. No, it's fine. We're gonna basically bind off that stitch that we slipped, and so now we've got 3 stitches on our needle, and we're going to slide them all back over to our left hand needle. And we're going to do the same thing all over again. So knit 1 stitch, knit 2 stitches, slip 1 knitwise, knit the 3rd, and we're going to pass the slip stitch over and off our needles. Then we're going to slide everything back over to our left needle, and we're going to do it again. Knit, knit, slip, knit, cast off, and slide back over. So you're knitting, basically knitting 3 and casting off 1 every time. It feels like a lot of work just to be casting off 1 stitch, but it does, like you see in like the end result when we get there, it does make this really nice rolled edge, and it's gonna look good, and it's gonna keep our Kindle or our e-reader safe and cozy inside. So I'm going to keep doing this. I will let it play at normal speed for a few more rounds, and then I will speed this up as we finish the I-cord, and then we'll be done. Okay, I am on to the last I-cord bind off stitch here, so I figured let's do this together. So we're gonna do knit, knit, slip, knit, slide it off, and slide these over. So now, let me get my needle out of the way. We've got these 3 stitches on the needle, and here's where we started. We kind of got a weird gap here, so we're going to basically close this off by stitching this up all together. So I'm going to trim a bit of length for an end here. There we go. And get your tapestry needle ready. These stitches on your tapestry needle. Okay, there's also a video tutorial linked in the description box down below on how to do this. It's called How to Finish Knitting I-cord in the Round, How to Join I-cord Seamlessly, and Weave in Ends. So in case I kind of messed mine up, I've watched this video a couple times, but I don't always do it perfectly. You can go over and watch that video if you want to. But what we're going to do is first we're going to, using our tapestry needle, slide the first stitch off our needle knitwise. Kind of pull that through, and we're going to find on the other side here the first of our 3 stitches in the I-cord. So here's the last one. Hopefully you can see this. What? Let's come out here a little bit. Okay. Here's the last one. Here's number 2 right here. And so number 3, or number 1, excuse me, is actually on the inside right here. So we're going to put our tapestry needle under both legs of this stitch. Make sure our needle doesn't get in the way. There we go. And kind of pull that sort of tight. We'll pull it tighter in a second. Okay, so now we're going to come back over and find that stitch that we took off the needle. Here, this first stitch. We're going to go into that right or left side leg, into the left leg, and then into the next stitch that's on our needle here, and slide that off. We basically need to be going through 2 legs of a stitch every time. Okay, so let's come back. We're gonna pull this a little tight to get that first stitch a little bit snug, and we're gonna find that second stitch right here of our I-cord. So again, here's the 3rd one. That's kind of the easiest one to find, closest to our stockinette. So then the next one, the one in the middle, is right here. Where'd it go? Here we go. So we want to make sure we go under both legs. There we go. Pull our yarn through. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing. Try to find that stitch we just took off the needle, if I can find it. We pulled everything tight and it's kind of hard to find. Okay, I'm just going to use this right here because that's what's available to me. It's okay to me if it's not perfect. Okay, and then I'm going to go through, pull off the last stitch here. And we're gonna slide through the last stitch here. Let's see, kind of bring this over a little bit. There we go. Okay, it's definitely not, look, mine isn't the cleanest, but it's okay. It looks decent. It looks pretty good. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do, we've got the tail kind of here. I'm just gonna stick it through the I-cord all the way to the back so we don't see it anymore. See, it's gone on the front. It's here in the back. And I'm just going to weave it in. So I'm just gonna weave it into my stockinette because I can easily see and follow the lines of stockinette and where it's supposed to go. You can weave in your end however you like to do it best. Doesn't really matter. Make sure if you did not already weave in the end from casting on at the bottom, if you would like to weave that one in, you should do that now as well. I already did it earlier in the making process because it was annoying me. So I just took care of that right away. Okay, now I'm going to snip. And look, it is done. Let's test this out. Boom, there it is. It looks so good. What I would do next is, if your stitches are a little bit uneven or if you just want to soften this up a bit, you can give this a nice steam block with a garment steamer, and that'll relax everything, even up your tension on all sides and with your I-cord edge. Additionally, if you have elastic thread, what you can do is you can thread a strand of elastic thread through your I-cord bind off. This will help to tighten it up just a little bit more if that's something that you're interested in. But this is it. This is our knit e-reader cozy, all complete. I hope you enjoyed knitting this. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you'll follow along for more in the future. All right, everybody, enjoy, happy knitting, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!